All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. It is another Saturday. We are back with the Watchdogs at 12 noon. Sorry I missed y'all last week, Robert Bryant, but glad to be back with Julius Hall again this week.
Ah, glad to have you back, my brother. You left me stranded on the island by myself.
Well, you had good company. You had one of the Senate candidates for Georgia State Senate, Orlando Scott, and this week we have Derek Mallow. And folks, we want you all to know that in this particular race, we don't have any favorites. Both gentlemen are very fine gentlemen, have both demonstrated great leadership in what they do in our communities. And so we just want to make sure that we give you all a chance to meet both individuals and you make your choice. But both gentlemen, we can endorse. But how can you endorse when you have two great candidates? And so, Julius, I'll follow your lead today. But I guess we'll begin with Mr. Mallow, State Representative Mallow, at the moment for 163. If you tell us about who you are and what's going on in your life right now, then I'll follow Julius's lead so that we're fair in how we question and offer the information.
Man, absolutely, man. Thank y'all again for the opportunity and the invitation to come and address your constituency here. I'm Derek Mallow. I'm State Representative for Georgia House District 163, native Savannian, graduate of the Herschel V. Jenkins High School, 1800 East Durant Avenue. Also graduate alumni of the Savannah State University. I ran for public office in 2020, won in a runoff, went on to serve in the State House for 2 years. Now I'm running for State Senate to succeed Dr. Lester G. Jackson III, who is running for Labor Commissioner. So shameless plug for Doc right there. So that's me in a nutshell. My family's from Pinpoint and Sandfly. I grew up on 36 and Waters my whole life. So anybody got any questions? Most everybody knows my family. If you're a Bond, you're a Martin, you're out of Pinpoint, you're out of Sandfly, that's my family.
Ooh, I hope that Jenkins thing didn't hurt you.
Nah.
The Heavens v. Jenkins and Jamal Torre and Heavens v. Jenkins. He having people hate them like they used to hate Florida State and the Dallas Cowboys.
They told me it was Herschel V. Walker High School at one point. I don't know. I think Torre might have got it wrong. I don't know.
That's Herschel V. Jenkins, and the V is for Victor.
Yeah, I figured he got it wrong. You know, Torre gets it wrong sometimes.
Yeah. So, Representative
got some
Mallow,
Sigma history over there too.
Oh Lord, I ain't gonna go there now. I ain't going there.
The good Reverend John Taylor, first African American principal to integrate Jenkins High School. Good Sigma brother. Good Sigma brother.
I'm gonna let you have your day. You know what? On another
we're gonna
day,
give you a pass today.
Right.
We're gonna give him a pass.
As long as there ain't no cues in here like Jay Jones, we good.
Yeah. So, Representative Mallow, tell us, what are some of the things that you want to change leaving one house and going over to the other house?
Well, so in my freshman year as state rep, we've been able to do some good. We've been able to get some stuff accomplished. We were able to get Savannah State in 2021, $4.5 million. Usually as a freshman, you don't get an appropriations ask, but you can work real hard to make a lot of friends to get that in there. So I was proud to work to get Savannah State $4.5 million to build a new welcome center and enhance our security on campus. Also got $3 million in compensation resolutions for 3 soldiers that were wrongfully convicted of murder here in the city of Savannah. That was started by J. Craig Gore, my predecessor. I was able to see that across the finish line for him. So as a freshman, we did some really good work. Also had a bill out to reform textbooks with the Georgia Department of Education to have the state include African-American history. And I outlined in that legislation that was co-sponsored myself, Dean Smiley, a couple other representatives, what we wanted to see in history books to urge the Department of Education on what we kind of want to see them do. That was kind of the nutshell of my first legislative session. I also introduced the bill to reform the Chatham Area Transit Board because I'm a big supporter and proponent of public transportation. And in order to get people from point A to point B, all of our communities have to be connected. And in order for us to have social mobility, that comes from access to public transportation. So we did that. Now, moving into the Senate chamber, what am I trying to accomplish there? I'm hoping to reform juvenile justice. Number one, we still have juvenile life without parole in the state of Georgia. Okay, a juvenile can be charged as an adult and sentenced to life without parole. an adult doesn't face the same sentencing guidelines that a juvenile does. We got to change that. Still fighting for my equity weight in the QBE formula, quality basic education formula. That's extremely important. We need an equity opportunity weight. So basically, here's the thing. So for rural school districts that became metro, i.e., let's say Gwinnett County, right? Gwinnett County benefits from the quality basic education formula because they started off as a rural county, but now it's a metro city. And so the allocation of dollars and resources, because when they came out with QBE, Savannah was already a bustling city. So we're penalized and not getting, more dollars from the state with that. So also want to look at some long-term solutions to affordable housing. So right now, cities and governments are prohibited to enter into long-term lease agreements past 10 years. Well, if you get a mortgage, you can either get a 15-year or a 30-year mortgage. And based on that timeline, that's usually what the bank says we can lease. We can give you a loan on your home so that we can get the return on investment for what we've invested. So we need to take counties and cities to the same type of deal where the maximum will be a 30-year lease agreement for the purpose of affordable housing. I also want to look at raising the state homestead exemption to put more dollars back into people's pockets. And so that's a big deal. And I'm still pushing my rural tax credit bill. I introduced it this session, but if you could watch the legislature, the governor saw my bill and he decided, oh man, we got a surplus. I'm gonna give everybody $250. What I want is not a one-time credit of $250. I want it to be an annual credit for poor and impoverished residents in the state of Georgia at or below 27,000 of the federal poverty guideline to get back $60 a year. But this is a long-term investment, not one that's short-term. So those are just in a nutshell some of the quick things that we're going to work on in the state Senate. And I can explain more of that and get into the weeds and the details. If anybody wants to know that, we can walk through it.
Robert?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned, and it was around policy around criminal justice. And so I often think about criminal justice reform and how we look at current laws on the book, especially when it comes to violent crime. And so last night, unfortunately, right here in our backyards, we saw an incident at Savannah State University. As we look at things like violent crime, what are your thoughts around how do we get to better policy, and what are your ideas around that better policy?
So violent crime has to be solved at the root cause. And the root cause is not going to be tougher sentences. What we've already found is that tougher sentences do not reduce crime. If that was the case, the 3 strikes and you're out would be the best law that was ever created. It does not work. And so we know that in order to address violent crime, you have to deal with the root cause of what is that violent crime and where does it come from? And even in Chatham County, if you look at not only the incident that happened in our backyard, but even the incident a couple of weeks ago, it is literally disagreements between adults that have not learned conflict resolution and therefore have chosen to take it out with firearms. And so that is not violent crime. We don't have conflict resolution skills. So there's a vast difference in how we reduce violent crime. Now, when we get to the violent crimes such as murder, rape, and those sort of things, those are social ills. When you look at, rape, sodomy, child molestation, those crimes are social ills. And we have to deal with that with substantive treatment, redirection. And if that doesn't work, then incarceration for those individuals. When you deal with murder, there's going to be a sentence that's given based off of that. And Georgia does not have a degree of murder. It is either you're charged with felony murder or malice murder, and a jury will convict based off of that. And so once that happens, the judge will issue that sentence. That individual has the opportunity to potentially be paroled, depending on how heinous the crime is. And so I do believe that folks can be redeemed. So when we look at what does that look like when they go through the parole process and they come back as returning citizens, do we have the infrastructure in there to support them to make sure that they don't become recidivists? And so the wraparound services and when we address the actual root cause is how we reduce violent crime. So in a nutshell, what we have to do is attack poverty. We have to increase social mobility. So my campaign is about social mobility, meaning how do people get from here to there and how we move them up that economic ladder. And that's going to also come by higher wage paying jobs. That's going to have to come by people having more opportunity, but also with more education. And so one of the things that I fought hard for this session was needs-based scholarships. And the way we were going to do that was on the backs of a bill known as sports betting. So if you bet on fantasy or you bet, on the sports team from your phone, right now it's illegal in the state of Georgia. We're missing millions in revenue. So I was hoping to capture at least $42 million in the sports betting to be able to fund needs-based scholarships so students who are in the university system of Georgia don't get kicked out by day 5 because they haven't paid their tuition bill in full. So there would be a closing the gap scholarship fund, because we know at HBCUs and compared to other universities, their endowments are a lot weaker. And so we have to strengthen those universities with this opportunity. And that's how I feel that we'll reduce violent crime, social mobility, solving the root cause, and then increasing opportunities and access and gateways for education.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Julius.
That's a whole lot that we need to be tackling in this state, in this city, in this county. And in order to get that done, you have to have like-minded people, like-minded elected officials who will understand that there's a need for these changes and that these issues need to be addressed. So with that being said, how do you feel that this election will go when you're talking the statewide election with Stacey and Warnock and all the other Dems? You got 9 people running for lieutenant governor this year, which I'm happy, because everybody is putting their hat in the ring for service. But we got to get these people in office to change things. What's your take on that?
That's right. Well, with the statewide candidates, when you look at, are we talking primary or are we talking general?
I'm talking the general.
Oh, yeah. For the general, it's going to be extremely important that you look at what's going to happen in November. And we have got to get everybody to turn out into November. And so everything that we look at in November is to make sure everybody not only comes out to the polls and votes, because we can turn this state blue in November, but we got to vote down ballot. And that's been an issue where people have had it in their minds to just come out and vote only the top of the ticket. I'm voting for Stacey and I'm going home, because that's proven in the last election with Warnock and Ossoff. How did we elect Warnock and Ossoff to the Senate but left Daniel Blackman out to dry?
And me. Don't leave me out there.
No, I was talking just about the runoff. So in the runoff, I'm only talking in the runoff.
I'll mess with you. You one of my people. So
yeah. Well, one of your first supporters when you ran for PSC. I got my T-shirt and my bracelet still. Thank you. That tells everybody, let you know I donated, right? Put my money where my mouth was. So that's the most important thing, that we can't have 2 U.S. senators and we lost the PSC that regulates our light bills and our utilities. And so that was a big loss for us.
But and if I could, Julius, we actually have 2 wonderful women running, which I absolutely love. And that's Patty Duran and Chandra Farley. So definitely check both of them out. But you talked about some pieces that made me think about homegrown talent. And I think, Julius, we've talked about this before in other shows, but we've got to get to a place where, especially around our police force, is hiring people that are from this area and not allowing our talent to leave the area. Savannah's a beautiful city. Chatham County is a beautiful county. But I don't think all the time we do a good job of retaining that talent right here in our own area. How can we do a better job of that?
Well, so with that, I think we have to break the stigma. So I've worked with Savannah Police Department with a program called Exploring, and that's basically connecting high school students and middle school students to careers in law enforcement. A lot of times our children want to go into that career, but they have to be prepared. They have to be able to pass the oral interview. They have to be able to pass the written exam. They got to be able to pass the polygraph. And they could do all of those things if they had a coach or a mentor. Because if you get in there and you're sitting in front of all these people that you've never been in front of before, you've never had to interview in front of a panel before, you're going to be probably scared to hell. Like, what do I say? I'm nervous. You got to prepare somebody for that if they've never been exposed to it. So a lot of times folks get denied or passed up because of the process. But if they had coaching through the process, they probably would make it. And I think that's what we have to do to help kind of recruit those folks and that homegrown talent to help them stay. But we're also going to have to look at, as a city, how do we raise that salary a little bit to make it competitive? because in Sandy Springs, they're paying officers $60,000 a year because they want the best of the best there. So when you look at that, you will attract the best. And so that may be something we may want to look at as well to help improve that pipeline. But also in the city of Savannah, unlike many of these other places, we got a lot of law enforcement agencies. So we're tapping into a pool because we got a full service sheriff's office. We got a county police department. We got a city police department. We got a school board police department. We've got border patrol. You got ATF. I mean, you got Homeland Security. You got a lot of agencies pulling for that same talent pool. So I often tell people we don't have a shortage. We just got our people spread all over.
And we got this, Julius, from Melinda. This is from Melinda Thornton. I don't know if you can see it, Derek, but I'll read her question.
I can see it.
Okay, awesome.
She's saying that some people. Oh, go ahead.
No, I see the question. What's your response to those expressing this? Well, let me just say this. All of my predecessors in the state Senate, Lester Jackson served in the House of Representatives before he served in the state Senate. Regina Thomas served in the House of Representatives before she served in the state Senate. Diana Harvey Johnson served in the House of Representatives before the state Senate. Al Scott served in the House of Representatives before the state Senate. And so if you compare me to my opponent and you say I'm newly to getting elected to office, he's never held elected office. So the juxtaposition is, do you want someone in the state Senate that has got legislative experience to represent you in the Senate? Or do you want someone who doesn't have any legislative experience that's never been elected before? And so I think that's the juxtaposition. So what I'm telling folks is I'm running for state Senate because I have the experience by serving in the House. And I understand how Atlanta works, and I understand how both chambers operate because I've served in that chamber. I've served in the House, and I have had bills passed the Senate. Just this past session, I passed a bill with Senator Jackson to make it where veterans could have documents notarized with their valid VA health card. And so I passed that bill in the House floor that went over to the Senate. I've sent bills from the House and went and lobbied to get them passed in the Senate. Like my cat bill, it died in the Senate because I could not get the support for the bill to be called. So my experience in the House shows that I'm ready to work. And so this past year, we got Savannah State $7.5 million to build a new physical plant. And the reason we got that money is because Derek Mallow with other legislators went to work for Savannah State. I lobbied the chair and the vice chair of higher ed appropriations. I said, we got to get Savannah State included. Some people threw numbers out there to get Savannah State money, but I actually went to work to make sure we were on the list, make sure it came through the Board of Regents, to make sure that we got that money appropriated in the bond package for the state. And we were successful in that.
And if I may add this, Julius, and I'm gonna be quiet, maybe. But I'm glad you're talking about Savannah State. I tell people a lot of times that if it were not for Savannah State, I'm a big supporter of Savannah State University, even though I'm a Georgia Southern alumni. My parents went to Savannah State. And the one thing I know about Savannah State is, had it not been for Savannah State University, we would not have the Black teachers we have in this region, not just Savannah, Chatham County, but this region. So Bryan County, Bullitt County, Liberty County, Chatham County. Your Black teachers are because of Savannah State University. And so what I want alumni to hear, and Derek, you know this well too much, is that we got to make sure that they don't consolidate that university. I'm very much, I'm a USG person, but that university has a special place not only in my heart, but it made a difference for this region. So I just want people to understand and remember that. So Julius, what you got?
Well, let me piggyback on what you just said about education. So next legislative session, we're working to rebuild the College of Education at Savannah State. We're looking to bring on a full College of Education the next legislative session and get the money appropriated, because Black African-American women are the largest group to become teachers, and Savannah State does not have an independent College of Education. We do not even award the graduate level for education. And so we need to bring that back to Savannah State. And we could talk history of why we lost that, and I can tell y'all that in a few minutes.
Okay. And, two of the services that really needs to be taken care of are our teachers and our police officers. Teachers and police officers need to be, because we asked them to do a whole lot. A police officer, without the police, there would be chaos. And without teachers teaching our kids, then we couldn't thrive in this country as we do. With that being said, what do you think about the voting rights bill that Georgia just passed?
Well, I went to the well on HB 15 1434. It's I went to the well to speak about that. And that bill got stripped down significantly from what it first was. I tell everybody the story of the Quitman 12 in that speech. I talk about what happens in Brooks County, Georgia, where 3 African-American women are elected to the school board and are charged with 120 counts of voter fraud when Brian Kemp was Secretary of State. And so what does that look like? That looks like when the power structure shifted in Brooks County and 3 African-Americans got elected, folks said, uh-oh, what do we do about this? And so that bill gives the GBI arrest powers to investigate elections. And here's the reason I'm opposed to that. I'm not opposed to the GBI having the authority to investigate elections. What I'm opposed to is the governor's office and the executive branch, which oversees the GBI, having this take over and investigate elections just as they see fit. I totally don't agree with that, because when you can weaponize law enforcement against Black and brown voters, then there's an opportunity that they might not show up to the polls. And some folks say, well, Derek, that's only going to be for Black folks. But when we're talking the entire state of Georgia, we're talking about those Hispanic voters that live in rural Georgia that work on a lot of these farms that are citizens. They live here, they vote here, that are intimidated from coming out to the polls and voting.
I think Julius got a question here.
The school board was denied a raise. Haven't had one since 2006. The vote was 7-2 in favor of the raise. What's the explanation to be denied? I know that the Democratic reps did not deny it.
Well, so we sent that bill over to the Senate, and Ben Watson did not allow for the bill to be called, and so that's because some Republican school board members said that they didn't want it. That they didn't think that a raise was appropriate, but the school board members deserve a raise. And so when I saw that the bill wasn't moving in the state Senate, what did Rep. Mallow do? I introduced that bill in the House. I got us on the local calendar, and we passed that bill out of the local calendar and sent it over to the Senate with enough time for it to be voted on. And so that's a direct reflection of what happens when you're in the minority, right? So Democrats are in the minority. And coming up into the next session, we're going to be even more in the minority. We'll have 2 Republican senators to 1 Democratic senator. And so there won't be the ability to stop even local legislation. So it's all intentional and by design. But guess what? We sent it from the House to the Senate so that the record would reflect who voted for it and who voted against it. And so we voted that bill out of the House, and hopefully, Madam School Board member, we can get that bill back on the calendar and reintroduce it again, because y'all do deserve a raise.
Well, and it's important. I'm glad you said that. And what's so dangerous about this 2-1 is you got folks in Port Wentworth, and Julius knows this all too well. You got white folk who mad because they lost to the Black folk, and so now we want to create our own city so we can be segregated again. So you got folks in Port Wentworth who want to revise segregation. How do you say, you know what, I understand your loss, but we're not going to do all that? So what are your thoughts? How do you navigate that?
So I navigated that this session by stopping the city from being dissolved. Me, along with my other colleagues in the House, the city manager and city attorney came up to Atlanta. We talked about it. I ran through all of the possibilities and the scenarios of how it could happen, because they had already ran the ad. They already had the bill introduced. And so we had to slow that thing all the way down. So we were coming up with ideas and suggestions on how to slow that takeover down, because if it went as a general bill, it would have been possibly a done deal, because they control the majority. Republicans control the majority. They could have ran as a general bill, but a local bill, they couldn't. So we slowed it down to where it was the only option was a local bill. And then we realized that, hey, y'all not going to have the support for even a local bill. And so we said, well, go get a feasibility study, go do a retreat with GMA, do these things, and then let's reevaluate it. And the goal was to put the onus to bring the council together and make the minority realize that's what it's like to be in the minority. Sometimes you don't like everything that's happening, but when you're in the minority, you got to do better the next election cycle. But the time is now where you're just going to have to go with the majority and negotiate and work with that majority to find commonality on what you want to accomplish. And if you can't do that, then guess what? That's the whole point of being in the majority. Now, the flip side to that is I understand that the mayor still don't want to come along to get along, but you know what? There's going to be consequences to that, and there's going to be another election, and that may change as well. So unless they just pack up and move, I don't know what they're going to do. So we'll keep watching that. We'll keep watching the bills to dissolve the city. We'll keep coming up with strategies to slow it down. We'll keep figuring out how to stop it. But as a local bill, if I'm the senator, it's dead because I'm the only senator that represents Port Wentworth. And if I didn't let it pass this time, I dang sure won't let it pass next time. And so I know the rules. That's one of the things about having me as your state senator. I know the rules and I know how this game works and how the rules of engagement are. So I'm better suited to slow things down because I know the rules.
I appreciate that. I don't even have to say a word because you took it all and everything I was about to say, you said. Yeah. We got a few more questions, so I want to get to a few of them. A lot of people are concerned about the new open carry law that was just passed also. Give us your thoughts on that.
So I voted against that bill as well because it's going to affect minorities much longer than it will anybody else. Because here's what happens. When you had that concealed carry license, if you were stopped, if a law enforcement officer saw that gun tucked in your shirt, they could ask you to produce your concealed carry license, right? Well, now you can't ask me anything because this is the state saying it's my constitutional right. Now, notice this, though. The state didn't do away with the concealed carry permit process, though, right? So if you still want to get one, you can. But how this affects minorities is our interactions with law enforcement. And so now if I am carrying concealed and law enforcement asks me to see any identification, I don't have to show it, right? So then that could create a hostile environment with law enforcement where they're going to say, well, you need to produce it. And I'm going to say, no, it's my right. I don't have to. And so then how are we treated versus everybody else as minorities? As an African-American male, how's my interaction with law enforcement going to be handled versus those who are of other ethnicities? That's dangerous because I don't have to show you anything. I don't have to give you anything. And so then if you stop me, I want to know what's the reasonable suspicion of why you stopped me, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, Julius, but you have to have a reasonable suspicion to stop somebody, right? And so I want to be treated like everybody else. Don't stop me because you see the butt of a gun and you think because I'm African American, I'm not legally allowed to carry a firearm. Don't do that. But we know that that's sometimes what happens with gun laws is that we're not treated the same as everybody else. And so until we get parity and equity in that, then it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be extremely dangerous.
That's true. That's really true. And what it does in my thoughts are everybody's going to want to have a gun because they're going to feel like somebody else is carrying a gun.
Yep.
And now you got people shooting people saying because you thought they had a gun. And I ain't talking about the police. I'm talking about regular citizens.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that is going to be a problem. And in the long term, it's going to affect our community worse than it affects any community because we have a propensity to be out more. And
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we're going to see where that goes at. And we're going to have to, maybe sometimes they always say you have to have the foot on your neck before you act.
Which is unfortunate.
That's right.
You know, so, we got to, maybe this get everybody out to vote, maybe to get them more engaged and involved, because it's a system that's it's a plan to affect our community, I think. What you saying?
No, I agree. And Julius, you tapped right into what Bernard asked earlier. How do you get people back to the poll? I think you got these particular public policy issues and this stupid issue with critical race theory, which doesn't, by the way, is never taught in schools. But how do you get people back to the polls? You know what I mean?
Well, and so that's what we have to do. I mean, the base of the Republican majority is fear, right? Fear. If you don't vote for me, they're going to be teaching about Black history, and you got to get out and vote. And, if you don't get out and vote, they're going to steal the election. I mean, it's all based on fear. It's fear-based politics. And that's what they're trying to drive people to vote for them on is fear-based politics. And so what we have to do is drive our people back to the polls saying, if you don't vote, there will be a greater likelihood that you could die because Medicaid is not being expanded. You could need a hospital and one won't be there. You could die from motherhood mortality. If your wife or daughter has a child, they could die in childbirth because African-American women are more disproportionately affected in healthcare, right? So there's a greater chance of that. And so we have to push back to the same folks that are voting, to let them know that there are consequences if you don't come out and vote. When young people say, oh, I'm not going to vote because it don't affect me. Yes, it does. It affects you. You want a higher wage? You tired of making minimum wage? Well, you give us a group of people who can raise the minimum wage. We could do that in this state, because they say the minimum wage being raised, it can't be done. Well, how does the state have a surplus of so many billions of dollars, and we can't raise the state minimum wage from $5.15 to $7.25 to meet the federal standard? There's money out here, okay? So be not dismayed. But we need to push folks and let them know, listen, no, not voting is not an option, because everything matters. Every judgeship matters. Every governor's, the Senate, everything matters, because if you don't have people voting for your interests, then the people who are voting against you are guaranteed to vote against your interests.
Well, let me share. As you talk about Medicare and Medicaid, I got a mother back here now who can't with a broken hip and Alzheimer's, and I refuse to put her in a nursing home. That's just not an option. But check this out, y'all. So we have an in-home care company that can be paid through Medicare and Medicaid. But if you understand the red tape to go through that, just to get that done, you understand why it's so important to put people at the table who can change legislation and make this red tape a little easier. At the end of the day, people worked that woman back there worked almost 40 years in the public school system. And to not be able to get resources for her or dad, I mean, it's ridiculous. And so our elderly people deserve better. Our young people deserve better. Our people deserve better. And so I'm glad to hear you talk about that, because we've got to put people around the table who are not afraid to stand up in the face of Republicans who only want to save it for their folks.
Well, and you need people to vote off of where they are too. There are people in rural Georgia who need health care, but sometimes they still vote against options to expand Medicaid or vote on different items for rural health care. I think that's one of the issues that's affecting us. People just vote against their interests. And so I think that we just have to make sure that we look at what we're asking, look at what we can deliver with the people that we have, and then we make the best, most reasonable, educated approach to get to where we need to get, because everything comes with compromise. We don't get everything that we want. We have to compromise on quite a bit, but I think we have to know what are the first things. Let's get the first things first done. Then we move to our second tier. Then we move to our third tier.
Okay. Next question is legalize gambling in the state of Georgia. What's your position on it? Because this used to be the Bible Belt, but I think it's changing a whole lot. So, I think that it'll bring a whole lot. You mentioned earlier that a bill that you sponsored, co-sponsored, to try to get some of the things on your agenda funded. So what is your position on legalized gambling in the state of Georgia?
Well, so let's talk about, gambling. A portion of gambling is already legal in the state of Georgia. You can play the lottery. Now, here's my issue with the lottery. The lottery is played by Black and brown people primarily. And the Hope Scholarship is no longer needs-based. And so everybody can get a slice of the Hope Scholarship. Then you have the Zell Miller Scholarship, which is on top of Hope, which requires you to have an even higher GPA. And so while that's great, I still want to see an opportunity for needs-based scholarships. The lottery has, let's say, over $40-50 million in reserves. It doesn't need that much money in reserves. So I'm looking for a constitutional amendment to release funds out of the lottery reserve so that we can have more money to fully fund pre-K, number one, okay? So number two on that would be sports betting, to allow you to bet on the Atlanta Hawks to have a 10-point win if that's what you want to do. Folks in the state are already doing it. They're already doing it. They're just doing it illegally. We can capture that revenue and bring it into the state, and we can fund needs-based scholarships so that students, when you talk about does Savannah State get taken over, well, we don't if we can collect all that money that we send students back home with, because that federal grant money, all that other money that if they had $500, they could make it. Well, if we had needs-based scholarships that Savannah State could tap into, our enrollment wouldn't be declining. We lose students because they can't pay the bill. And so the foundation doesn't have enough money to cover all the gaps for all the students all the time. So we got to look at that. And so when we deal with casinos, I'm not a supporter of casinos. I'm not a proponent of casinos. However, when we looked at this year, the constitutional amendment coming out, it included sports betting. And so that the bill could come to the floor so we could work on it and debate it a little more. It did come out of committee. And so that's where I am. I'm against casinos. I'm in favor of sports betting. I'm all about reforming the lottery commission.
Okay, okay. So we'll see where it goes at. I, I'm a I'm a proponent for do what you want to do. Some people say that I am, because
I
if you
think Julie's
don't
gonna
do
be a
it,
lobbyist.
it's we going to Carolina to do it legally. We're going to for the casinos. We're going to Mississippi and
Getting on
other
the boat.
places. Florida to go down to Florida and
Don't say Florida, man. You're a Georgia person. Now, come on.
no, but we're
They're
going
going
to
to
all
Brunswick,
these
get on that
places.
Emerald Princess.
You know,
Hey,
Brunswick down there.
yeah.
You're right. So, what I mean, I think it's coming. We're just slow to get to it, and it is good politics to, be neutral on it until you get an uproar from the people to really do it. Um, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a push to all those people that's jumping on the bus going to do all these every year.
Hey.
You know?
Hey, with that though,
Every
Julius,
10
I mean,
buses.
hey, check this out though. This was a discussion at one point. I don't know where it is, but even the cruise line industry. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I'm 50-50 on that. I can see the benefit, but I can also see the caveats of it. But even with the cruise boat industry, there's some opportunities potentially there. I don't know.
Yeah, the cruise, they dredged the harbor there, the river here. So we should be able to bring cruise ships in now, right?
I think we should. That one would be more of that's kind of not a state one, but I think we should be able to get a cruise company to dock here, because I know people in Savannah go on cruises all the time, and I know we tired of driving to Jacksonville and Miami and Charleston to get on the boat, go on vacation. I mean, that would be an amenity for the residents of Savannah to have that opportunity to, Uber downtown, catch the bus, whatever suitcase, get on the boat, and you way to Jamaica.
That's right.
I support that one.
We're gonna hope that you champion the cruise ships for us then.
Lex, hey, and I'm a travel agent, by the way, part-time. So hey, I'll put in my shameless plug.
I got a few
shameless plug.
Hey, you gotta make how you hey.
We got about 17 minutes left, and I got a couple of tricky questions. They ain't tricky. It's just it's two things that we want to know. One is the election processes for the Supreme Court justice. Now, let me give you the backstory on it real quick. I don't know whether you are familiar with it, but a Supreme Court justice, I'm the Supreme Court justice, Robert is running against
Chief Justice, to get it right.
And 6 months before the election, I don't want Robert to win, so I retire. The governor can cancel the election. Robert done spent $1 million running against me. The governor cancels the election and can appoint somebody to sit in my seat for the next 2 years. That person can do the same thing, effectively killing an election. How do we solve this problem? And we got one worse with the Public Service Commission, which you have to answer next.
Oh, I can go down that one. That's all legislation. That is the power of the executive. That's why it's so important to have somebody in the governor's office, because when you control the governor's office, just like when you control the White House, if a justice retires in the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., you get to appoint that new judge to that seat. And so I think that's an opportunity that we have missed. But I also think for the state Supreme Court, if I'm on the ballot and I'm running for office statewide, people should have to vote their conscience and elect that person. We have to do away with the business of the political appointees, because if I resign and my term is not up, then the governor can appoint someone to fulfill my unexpired term, and then that term takes a little bit more. When you do that, you circumvent the power of the people. And so The electorate has the opportunity to vote for every elected office in this state. Judgeships are one, and it needs to be on the ballot, and folks need to vote for it.
Okay. So we're hoping that we can get the right person in the governor's office so that everybody in the House and Senate can make those changes to the laws so that that can not happen again. It needs to be a fair and balanced process, which it isn't right now, because whoever's in the governor's office gets to choose. I don't care if it's a Democrat; they should not be able to do that. You should be able to be
Right.
like you just stated. Beat me at the ballot box. Now you can go in and tackle the Public Service Commission voting process. That's the craziest thing. Also, Georgia is crazy with these two things. You got somebody living in Atlanta in District 3 who do not represent us, and District 2, I believe, also up that way, do not represent this part of Georgia, but we have to vote for them even though they don't represent us. And it's done that way for a reason, because the good old boys had the majority vote. This was the Bible Belt. This was a red state. So they could get those votes, even if they were outnumbered in the district, they could get those votes from these rural areas throughout Georgia. So what's your thoughts on how do we change that?
So even this past session, they redrew one of the lines for the Public Service Commissioner. So I believe it was Tim Echols wouldn't even have an opponent. A lady was going to challenge him out of Gwinnett, and they drew her out. So he knew who his opponent was.
It's not funny,
it was reapportionment, but they drew her right on out of there. And so when you look at it, that power through reapportionment is so crucial because they just drew his opposition out. They knew where she lived, and they drew her out so she wouldn't qualify and run against him. That part of the process is absurd, but also the same thing. You have public service commissioners who are running in districts but are being elected statewide. If that don't make sense, what does? I don't represent the whole state. I still represent this district. And so we need to change that to be back district specific so that the power where people live, they have that power for vote so that they can vote their conscience for the people that they represent, because that is only a way to dilute and give rural Georgia more power to determine those elections, because if they did it based off the district, they'd all be lumped together in one. They don't have the voting stream. And so that's intentional. We need to look at changing that when we change the governor's office and we flip the state house and the state senate as well, so we don't have to worry about these issues getting across the finish line. We know that we can move them from the house to the senate to the governor's office.
Awesome. Okay. Anything on that, Robert?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think the only good part to that current situation, what we deal with now, is when Daniel and I ran, we were like the world tag team champions. When Daniel was somewhere, I was represented, and vice versa. So in that regard, it worked out well, and we became really good in that regard. But it's not a governor's race. And when you have to, I never forget one time I had to drive to Stevens County. If you know what Stevens County is, during COVID at night, you're like, wait a minute, am I running like Stacey Abrams? And so what you do, you essentially have a governor's race that's not a governor's race. And so I agree, it needs to be per district because while I am representing Georgia, I'm only representing District 1. And so I can't speak for the people in Atlanta. I can only speak for District 1. And what District 1 could carry is you start talking about different types of energy. And so it's a very disproportionate way, as you said, Mallow, to disenfranchise Black voters and disenfranchise Black candidates. So,
and we want to thank Robert. Robert is the only person I know that lives in the city of Savannah that has ever gotten 2 million votes.
Hey,
statewide.
Statewide.
And honestly, it was the people we had, man. I tell you, Derek knows this all too well. You got people out here working with you and for you for little to nothing. And, you thank people like that, because when you have a vision, it takes an army to make that vision real.
That's correct.
That's right. Correct. And so let me just, that's one of the reasons you got to have people supporting, though. When you look at a statewide race and you say, man, they're asking for money all the time. Y'all, it take gas to put in his car to get from here to Stevens County. And he got to take signs. He got to be able to drop those signs off. He's got to be able to have people on the ground there to help organize. it takes a true concerted effort, because in order to get us out to vote, we got to have all of those things to help turn out that base of people to get them to vote. It's not just about what I'm doing in my race. It's about what am I going to do to increase turnout.
Right. Well, tell the people how they can get in touch with you. Tell them your website. Tell them everything, and then tell us why they should be out voting for you.
Well, thank you again to Julius Hall, to Dr. R.G. Bryant, to the Watchdogs, ATR Media, for allowing me the opportunity to speak to your constituency today. You can go to my website, www.derek, Georgia, GEORGIA.com. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Derek for Georgia, and on Facebook as State Representative Derek Mallow. You can connect with me. All of my contact information is on there. It's on the website. You can call my cell, 912-401-1597. You can text me. My phone number's on all of my business cards for the state. And if you call me and I don't answer, text me, because I do get a lot of calls, and texts help me filter out what's immediate and what's I can get to a little later. You can email me, info@derekforgeorgia.com, and you can connect with me. I've always been accessible. One thing I tell everybody of why you should vote for me is because when you look at my service as state representative, my constituent services is on par. There are not many, if any, constituents who can say that they've called me about an issue and I've left them out to dry. If they call me about an issue, I've addressed the issue. I've called GDOT. I've made recommendations. I've asked folks to look at something, whatever the issue was. And so my level of service, if I'm elected to the state senate, is going to be the same. You'll get the same representation that you had before. Now, I will say this. You should vote for me because I'm going to tell you where my heart is. And if I'm with you, I'm with you. If I'm not, I'm not. And I will tell you this. We're not always going to agree on everything, but I pray that we're not disagreeable, because we can agree to a healthy dialogue and discourse, because the same way I may go about doing something, the same way you may go about doing something may be totally different. But if the end goal is the same, I'll work through my process and you work through yours. God made us uniquely and individually made so we could be free and independent thinkers. So don't look at me any different because I don't think the same way that you do. I may think about it the same way, but I may go about it and do it some different way. So just trust me. And I tell everybody the loudest noise you can make is with your feet. So go vote Derek Mallow. I'll be the first name on the ballot, the right-hand side for state senate. Vote for me. If you voted for me to be your
Think you faded out the last couple of words.
Oh, I said I'll fight for Georgians every day. My headset must have died. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Early voting starts May 2nd, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Early voting starts May 2nd. We're going to try. I think Robert will have, if there's any time, we'll see whether we can have the two of you on, and just discuss the issues. There's no debate or nothing. It's just discussing the issues, and we want to give the people access to both of you. So if Robert can schedule that before the election, then we'll get it on.
You said I get treated mellow. It don't make no sense. Do it.
But man, no, we just the educator in you.
Hey, but no, we're just thankful for Julius, because I tell people all the time, we didn't have this platform 5-10 years ago when Jay Craig ran, and when Jay Craig was out there. And just think about if we would have had this kind of platform then. So you just be thankful for that. So we're happy to jump in. We got to have fun though. It's like barbershop talk. You get in there, you talk trash, but it's all in good faith, because iron sharpens iron. Bernard, Bernard knows about this. Iron sharpens iron. So I believe African American males sharpen African American males, and this is how it is. It is how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that should wrap it up, unless you got something else you want to tell us, Representative Mallow. We're happy to have had you. We hope to have you back, and we hope to see you out on the campaign trail.
I just want either Derek or Orlando or one of the Lester, somebody. Y'all need to get like Jim Clyburn and have a fish fry every year.
We had a fish fry with the Sigmas, and you missed it.
Hey, man, listen, man, that's a Sigma fish fry. I want to see the Jim Clyburn got the Jim Clyburn fish fry. Me and Bernard Brown looking for it next year. Somebody better get it together.
That's right. That's a good idea. You get everybody out eating fish, and hey. The Labor
I
Council
might
did
do
it.
something like that. I might do a Low Country Bowl. I'm from Pinpoint. We gotta bring my family into it, so we might do a Low Country Bowl after I win.
On
Y'all better
36
get it
and
because
one.
Jay Jones gonna steal the idea. Watch what I tell y'all.
I really enjoy it. Oh, you got people saying they really love you, really enjoy you.
Well, we don't love them until we see a fish fry.
Well, next, I said a Low Country Boil. See, I can boil shrimp quicker than I can feed y'all that fish. That fish expensive. I got to buy the whiting. I got to get the grease.
Hey, at least you know about whiting. People from Savannah, if you outside of Savannah, let me tell you, if y'all ever travel, ask people about whiting and red rice. They don't know nothing about it. They don't know what you're talking about.
Listen, I don't fry no tilapia. That ain't no real fish. There.
They ain't got no bones in it, man. Come on.
Yeah, I want some whiting.
I don't want that fish there, man. Y'all can keep that.
Let me tell you about my daddy.
Yeah.
So my daddy grew up in Savannah. He been here since 1927. Daddy tell me all the time, if it ain't got no bone in it, ain't no real whiting.
That's it. Well, you know, when you do the fillets, I don't want nobody to choke on no bone. Everybody want to sue you these days. So no, y'all gonna get boneless fillets from me.
He ain't gonna eat it. He told me I want that California fish.
If you don't like that,
we took the bones out.
Hey, man, he don't want it. He told me to take it back.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I appreciated this hour. We had a great time. Thank you for all the information you provided to our viewers, Representative Mallow. And we're going to tell you good luck. And we'll see you out on the campaign trail somewhere. Don't forget, everybody, May 2nd is the primary.
Early voting.
That's early voting.
Yeah.
May 24th is the day that you can vote in the primary. So we'll see what's happening, and we'll keep you informed right here on this network.
That's it. So next Saturday we got a judge, I believe, and so next Saturday, same time, same place, and we'll go from there. Y'all have a great week.
All right, y'all.
like that.